Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Secretary, for being here. Appreciate your work. Appreciate your comments earlier in regards to the need for congressional oversight, which you stated you understand the need for. You have done, I think, an excellent job of outlining your response and the department's response to the questions that have been raised legitimately here today. But I find it unfortunate that you continue to be asked about reading a specific memo, and that I don't understand what that has to do with your department policy on these issues, which is important that we understand. And in fact, the memo that you're being asked about was written in January 10th of 2017, prior to you taking office. So I just want to make that clear for the record. I also find it offensive earlier comments that were made in regards to your view of public education. Anyone who looks at your body of work and says that you don't care about children, doesn't care about public education, that's untrue, it's false, and it's offensive. I also find it offensive that the same statement was made about Republicans. And anyone can look at my record and others on the Republican side of the aisle and know that we have worked hard to ensure that every child gets the education that they deserve and that public education is working effectively in our states. So the committee has reached a new level when we are throwing those kind of accusations against the other side, and it's unfortunate, should not be part of a hearing here today. You do have, there have been some questions in regards to your authority and to the idea of partial, what's the word?
Partial relief.
Partial relief, I'm sorry. And I want to make this clear. And I want to ask you a question in this regard. Partial relief could be for someone who has already graduated from the institution and who is in the workforce, correct?
Correct.
We're talking about someone who may have graduated years before the school closed, who has had a beneficial education and has had a job as a result of that education. What I'm hearing Democrats say here today is they don't even want us to look into that. They want instead you to make a blanket relief, 100% of any additional student loans that that student has outstanding. Am I correct on that?
Well, there is, I know there is an attitude that many, if not all of the
no court of
should
law,
be
no court of
forgiven.
law would look at a situation like this. No insurance company would look at a situation like this. And for us to expect that taxpayers would support something along that line, I think, is not a good precedent. I do want to put a few things on the record. And I'm going to run down through a series of questions. So borrower defense, first, you agree it's a provision included in the Higher Education Act, correct?
Correct.
That statute in section 455H of the law states, notwithstanding any other provision of state or federal law, the secretary shall specify in regulations which acts or omissions of an institution of higher education a borrower may assert as a defense to repayment of a law made under this part, except that in no event may a borrower recover from the secretary in any action arising from or relating to a loan paid under this part an amount in excess of the amount such borrowers were paid. Those are the only provisions that restrict the activities that you can take in writing a rule. Am I right on that?
Correct.
My interpretation means this: one, that the secretary will issue regulations on this issue, and number two, as I said, that's the only limit that you have in providing relief. Turning to the rulemaking activity then, there are three different regulations. President Clinton's in 1995, President Obama's in 2016, and yours this year. Is that correct as well?
That will take effect next July, yes.
Yes, and the regulation applicable to the loan is dependent on the date the loan was dispersed?
Correct.
Under the 1995 Clinton regulations, did the regulations allow the secretary to grant partial relief?
Yes.
Under the 2016 Obama regulations, was the secretary allowed to grant partial relief?
Yes.
Under the 2019 regulations, was the secretary allowed to grant partial relief? Do you believe that that authority is clear and not in dispute?
Yes, I do.
If members of Congress disagree with the policy decision they deferred to the department, can they introduce and pass a bill mandating that you to provide full relief? And would you continue to follow the law that Congress has written if that were the case?
Congress could indeed pass that law, and if that law were passed, I would indeed follow it.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.